99 FM that rough ends with someone to love. And if you're looking for someone to love, dog, don't look far. Also, you, where are you looking? Can you just look in the mirror? There's that someone in front of you. Yes, Miguel or Mugai. You know, love yourself, Patung. Especially during these corona times, or especially just in lifetimes, because life can be so exhausting and so weighing heavily upon us. And a little bit of love, especially self-love, trust me, it goes a very, very long way. Now, speaking of self-love, there's one lady that knows about all of that. She is businesswoman extraordinaire, super mom, came in here looking like a bombshell of notes. Abatong Ilke Platt, hi. What are you doing?
I think that's the best intro yet. How are you?
I'm so good. Like you came here smelling like some spring and summer together.
Spring is here.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you,
I'm
Sibu?
so good. I'm so good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure, walking in the studio and just feeling that positivity, that energy, that love. So thank you.
Yeah. We appreciate you. Also, I just need to understand, we have someone that can go live for you, but you have your phone.
Oh, no, wait. So this phone is from my WhatsApp status, okay? So my 30 seconds is done, so I'm going to put down my phone.
So wait, there's a WhatsApp phone, there's an Instagram phone, and then there's a phone. How does it work?
There's a mama phone,
Okay. Now, we see you in so many different facets, and people have, of course, like opinions of you and perceptions about you. But who is Ilke to Ilke?
I loved your intro where you said, you need to love yourself, and it starts by you just looking at looking at the mirror. When I have a reflection, I want it to be something that symbolizes purity, sincerity, love, hard worker, and above all, God-fearing woman.
Whew.
Yeah.
And that encompasses Ilke.
Well, I hope so, yeah. I hope I'm doing a good job at, emulating all those adjectives.
Yeah. But I think for me, what really inspired me is seeing you evolve into a businesswoman. And stepping into your own and stepping into the journey of entrepreneurship. How has that journey been for you?
Oh wow, from day one, we've been as raw as you can get. When I described one of the adjectives, I said sincerity. I should also add transparency. I think many times people try to make things look good from the outside.
True.
And it's not easy at all. I can sit here and reminisce about, oh my gosh, how many incidences I had, where it's like, oh my goodness, should I go back to corporate or should I just push on? And this month, by the way, we're now over 1,000 days in office. Hey, that's it. So scientifically proven, if you now pass the 1,000 days, that means that you are actually in it for a good while. There are so many companies that have started up the first year and have failed, either because of financial instability, probably just the stress that goes with it, maybe the emotional depression. It's been a roller coaster ride, Sibu. But at the end of the day, when I'm sitting here, I've got my own time, my own pace. I can spend time with my sons. I can be a mother, and I can do something that I really love doing and enjoy every single day.
True. Looking back at the rough road that you've been on, is there anything that you would say that you would do differently even?
I had a conversation with someone just the other day, and I'm like, you know what? You know how people say I wouldn't change a thing, but we know you're lying. We know you're lying. So I'm gonna say yes. There would be a couple of things that I would do differently, but the outcome and the way it happened, I wouldn't change, because if I'm speaking now on the microphone, I wouldn't have been able to tell a story that's genuine and something that really has made me a bit stronger. And when I speak about those examples, it's about just going to your last dime to make it through the month. That's realistic. And number two, I think when you move from corporate and you've been in corporate for so long, you get so comfortable with that stability.
True.
All assets, not even just finance, but just your routine. And knowing that you're gonna do A, B, C, and D. The first year when I started out, it was just like thumb sucking. I didn't have a big master plan. I didn't, say, okay, I got a whole bunch of money stacked up, so in case, my reserves are over and done, I have something to fall back, or I have, a further way to go. Not at all. But jumping the boat, you just need to close your eyes and swim, even if it feels like a chain ball stuck to your ankle.
Yeah, and drowning. But just know you still can swim.
Yeah, your head's above the water because you got to stay afloat.
Yeah. Let's talk about your brainchild, Poiyah Media. How did that come about? Firstly, for those that don't know, because they've been living under rocks and things. How did you decide, like, listen, this is exactly what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to map it out?
So firstly, the name, from a PR marketing, you're like, oh, what name am I going to choose? What's the logo going to look like?
Yeah.
What's the slogan going to be? And when I ask myself the question, why am I doing what I'm doing? It's because of my sons. It's because of my kids. Nothing else. I can say I can do something to empower me and empower other people, but when I leave the house, it's because I need to really put bread on the table for my 2 kids. So I took the name of my firstborn, Poiyah, and then the second name of my secondborn, Oya, and I put it together and said Poiyah. So that was how the name came about. And then our slogan, word of mouth, I want our word to be as good as the next person says so. I don't have to place an advert in the newspaper. I don't have to put anything on radio. The service should be as good as what your last client, praises you to be. And when it came to PR, it was inevitable because I've been in corporate for 10 years. And it's doing everything that I've done for big companies in my private capacity. However, focusing on the small, medium enterprises, the startups.
Interesting. But what do you love most about the sector, especially when it comes to public relations? Because like you say, in corporate, everything gets mashed together. You are PR, you are HR, you are marketing, and your communications. You understand? Uzonke. Like, you're the stew, the poiki.
I always say, if there's no owner of something, it's PR. If they don't have anybody to do it, it's PR, because everything is around PR. But on a real, what I love about PR, you are versatile. I mean, when I started out 18 years ago on radio, I'm not going to reveal my age.
Well, usually.
So, I mean, it's radio, it's TV, it's, you can do journalism, you can do public relations, you can do marketing. There's so many things that you can do, and you're not confined to just doing one thing. I think I'm one of those people, I can't sit still. I get bored very, very easily. And I think when I remain in a certain organization for 5 or more years, you just feel like your life is repetitive. Like, okay, so what do I do now? Am I content? Am I happy? And having a conversation about what is purpose, that was the main question when I jumped to say, what is the purpose and why are we doing, apart from, providing for your sons, but what about that real impact that you want to make? And therefore, we said there's a gap with SMEs. What makes us different? There aren't many PR agencies that really cater for those that are really getting out of their bubble. Everybody will probably put PR at the back end because it's a nice to have tool. It's not like, I need somebody like an accountant or I need an HR. It's that thing that's at the back, but we need it, but it just looks pretty.
It looks like, especially when it comes to SMEs, if you, as a startup, if I'm just starting up, you're right. The last thing that I would even think about is PR, because in my head, that's a luxury. It's like when you're broke, do I really need that KFC?
You're right. I love that illustration. That's spot on. But you know what? The thing that we do wrong so many times, and I just love that we're in a pandemic. So many CEOs and corporates now see the real need of social media analysts, social media experts, because when we were all locked up at home and we didn't have traditional print media, it's social media that really gets you a far way. And if you haven't started with your following and the reach, it's not too late, but it is a little bit to really get your message out there. But I love the pandemic because now it shows the importance of PR, communicating with the staff. If people are now at home, at remote different places, Zoom calls, virtual meetings, how do you empower your staff with, great communication tools? Not over communicating, I hate those every 5 minutes, somebody sends you a COVID-19 message. No, but it's the importance of saying PR and comms is so important, even during this pandemic more than ever.
True. Speaking of the pandemic, how have you maintained your sanity?
By God's grace. And I'm so serious about that. I'm laughing, but I'm so for real. Sibu, when I leave home, yes, you make a deliberate effort to, look for clients. In March, and I'll be honest, 90% of my SMEs just couldn't afford our service anymore. They're like, look, I need to now do the important things. I can't afford a KFC, so now I need to go to Pop or whatever that can last me for a month, but in a business context. So 90% of our startups, literally told us, unfortunately, you know, even if we do have a contract for 6 months, 3 months, we cannot afford you anymore, and you should just accept it. So yes, we've had a major impact like everybody else has. However, I see the silver lining with opportunities, because now it encourages you to do things differently. So if I would have done something in a certain way, how do I now, you know, customize it to be very, very relevant? Our business model is 90% still for SMEs, but now you have to say, let's be realistic. We need those, you know, big companies just as a retainer to keep us afloat.
True.
But still sticking to your main target market.
What are the three things that you have learned about yourself during this, you know, entrepreneurial journey that you've been on?
Wow. Okay. Number one, I have learned I have so much. Wow. What words could I use? That's a nice question, Cindy. That's a really nice question. There are so many things that I learned. I think above all, just to be really, really, you need to self-motivate.
Okay.
So that was the first thing, for me to self-motivate. Number two, especially during the pandemic, you know, in my business, is to understand and appreciate the finer things. It's not all about trying to, you know, seal deals, but spending that quality time with your kids, even if it means being a assistant teacher in the morning and servicing clients, yes. And then number three, that your job indirectly is to help the next. As much as about, you know, getting clients and paying off, you know, bills and debts, you need to shape somebody else's, you know, future. And that's my reward at the end of the day. When I see that, you know, startups are now flourishing after a whole 3 years, that makes me feel good. And just lastly, Sibu, you know, during our whole 3 years, we have a model of mentoring, taking in interns. I mean, you have one of my former interns that's now a, you know, full-time employee at 99FM. So that's like a, you know, a happy mommy moment where I see that even if it's 6 months that I take them in so that they can graduate and they get practical experience, I can now say that above 80% of my interns since over 1,000 days ago have a full-time job. And that for me brings me happiness.
Beautiful. Now finally, I mean, this is Women Crush every day, and we like crushing on each other because there's nothing more, for a lack of a better word, inspirational than seeing another woman that you can emulate. And not only emulate, but when you see their rise, it makes like the fire within you burn even brighter as well. Who's that woman for you that lights your fire?
I would have to say Oprah. Oprah always does it for me. For somebody that's gone through, especially broadcasting, because I've always been fond of broadcasting, you know, being challenged in so many different, you know, ways and being looked upon in a very stereotypical way, but breaking those barriers, not only just presenting, but now owning her own network, that for me is inspiring, that you should dream bigger than just being content with being a radio announcer. And I'm not saying anything bad, but if you're a radio announcer, aspire to do something more than that. Use your platforms now to open up those opportunities. Use the door when the time is right.
My gosh, I can talk to you all day.
We already had such a long chat before
this. Not a nice little podcast just for the two of us.
I actually wanted to ask you about your journey, but it's okay. I'll interview you next time.
Thank you so much, Ilke, for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate the woman that you are, but more so I appreciate the woman that you're becoming. Yeah. Because seeing that growth in someone else makes you go, also you can more.
If you can do it, I can do it. Amen.
That's the whole point. You see someone and the journey, like you said, if anything, you have been more than transparent with your life and with who you are and who you've been, and there has been no shame surrounding it whatsoever. And so to see that, to see someone be a phoenix, you know, is, man, thank you for coming.
You're making me blush. Well, I want to send a shout out to all the listeners. We're going to have an outro with Ariana Grande.
Mom.
Yeah, going out to Clyde. Clyde said, I'm listening. I'm the #1 listener. So shout out to you. And thanks for having me.
Anytime. You know, this is home for you.
Home sweet home.
Even. So Clyde, also you, this is for you. Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, stuck with you in 99.